the arrow.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the November Messages from Mother Mary, the monthly broadcast that we do. Tonight is going to be a little bit different because my longtime friend Mary, who interviewed Mother Mary and me on Blog Talk Radio for years, 5 or 6 years ago. I'm losing track of when that was, but it was a while back. But Mary and I, of course, have stayed friends, and I just thought it'd be kind of interesting to have her sort of guide some of the discussion, because sometimes Mother Mary always has plenty to say, of course, but sometimes it's nice to just start with a few questions and see how that goes. There's so much going on, and I hear from so many of you that are, I don't want to say struggling, but just wondering, how can I maintain my sanity in this world right now, and how can I continue to make a contribution and be a blessing in the world at this time. So thank you so much, Mary, for joining us again. And why don't you start out by telling us a little bit about you and then asking the first question.
Oh my gosh, I wasn't ready for that.
Oh, okay.
No, that's okay. I've probably done, I would say at this point, about 20 years of talk radio. I started off with a show called Shadow Worlds, Chronicles of the Paranormal, and then I created my own called Health and Harmony, Exercise for Your Mind, Body, and Soul, which I think is when I met you in Las Vegas, because it was
Yes.
right before I actually started my show Heavenly Encounters, because I loved everything about mind, body, and soul, but the spiritual is what still always just captivated me, and it still does. So I am going to eventually relaunch that show. But in the meantime, we thought this would be kind of fun to kind of go back to basics and kind of start from the beginning of what it's like to incarnate into Earth, why we're here, and what it's like to go back home.
Well, I'm ready to bring in Mother Mary. Do you want to go ahead and start with the first question?
Yeah, let's just start with the first basic one. How does our soul prepare itself to actually incarnate back on Earth?
Well, we may only get to one question tonight, Mary. That's quite an interesting question, because I think so many times, once you're already on the earth plane, sometimes you might be thinking, what was I thinking, right? Why is it this challenging? Why do I do what I do, and things don't always work out the way that I would like, et cetera, et cetera. So the way that it really works is, if you think about what is a soul, it's a little like, again, I'm going to try to use some analogies to have it make more sense to you. It's sort of like being at the ocean and taking out, like a cupful of the ocean water and saying, oh, that's me. That's me. And then at some point you put it back in, and there you are. So it's as if you took some of the stuff, the ocean of God, if you will, and decided that you wanted to have another go at this crazy experiment on Earth. And so it's the process of incarnation is quite simple. When you're back with all of us, you don't have a body, but you do have an essence. And that essence is really what sort of enervates and creates the soul. It energizes, not enervates, energizes the soul, because your essence still lives. If you, again, you go to the ocean and you look at this wave or that wave, this cove or that inlet, and some of it feels different than other places, but nonetheless, it's all the sea water. So the intelligence of your essence makes up your particular soul essence, which then can sort of say, look down on Earth and say, what contribution could I make? So it's really always about a contribution. It really isn't, some people talk about karma and, well, I was bad in this life, so I would go back and be good, or I was bad in this life and I injured this person, so I'll go back and be nice to them. That might happen, but that really isn't the purpose for which you come. You come to see if your essence can actually not only incarnate, but create a frequency that actually has a healing effect throughout your life. So you come with sort of this wonderful idea of using the essence of yourself to then make a trail of light, if you will, in the world. What sort of creates the complexity of all that is in your incarnation, you're born into a certain family and a certain religion and a certain location and this and that. And so within that, there becomes this sort of almost conflicting pressure, because each family wants you to be loving and successful, hopefully most of the time anyway. But how they define that may not be how your essence really wanted to express itself. And so this conflict becomes really your curriculum. And so the curriculum isn't to make your parents wrong or your religion wrong or any of that. It's to understand that all of those frequencies give you an opportunity to find your frequency. So sometimes you love a certain, let's say, yoga class. Oh my goodness, I just love it. It's I belong. It's wonderful. That's enhancing your frequency and giving you, in a way, a larger auric field to be able to express. And then perhaps you go somewhere else and you feel sort of almost defensive and you feel almost like this isn't my place to be. And so your essence sort of retracts a little bit, recedes, while you're trying to deal with whatever it is that has been uncomfortable for you. So the journey of the soul is really to find again your essence and to feel it and to trust it and to then express it in whatever ways your soul calls to you to do. And it's a wonderful journey. It really is. I know it has its challenges. I'm recognizing that for everyone. But the bottom line is each of you carry the essence of love, but in a particular configuration. Some of you, for instance, animals are your passion, and you just love animals, and you will have dogs and cats and fish and birds and whatever, either by yourself or in your environment, and you're so captivated by them and you're doing everything you can to help them and see that they're well taken care of. For other people, it's the environment. For some people, it's working with children. For some people, it's working with the elderly. For some people, it's like there's lots of different programs in which you can take your essence. And the bottom line is the ones that help you feel almost transfigured, transported into a sense beyond yourself. It's like, oh, this is me being here on earth, but sharing my essence and expressing in a way that is extraordinary. And so when you live your life in that way, it becomes easier and easier to say no when you feel like that's not for you. And of course, yes, when you feel like it is for you. But in the meantime, to always realize whatever is happening in the world, and I know this is a challenge, they're not doing it to you. They're doing it, and you may not like it at all, but they're not doing it to you. They're doing it because in their curriculum, they're still learning something about whatever it is that they're doing. So to not take it personally, to find your way as an essence of light, and to the best of your ability to find the expressions and the other people and the experiences that help you to feel powerful and loving and joyous. That's the purpose of your incarnation. And then when you do end your life here and come back to the ocean of God, there's a sense of either what an accomplishment you've made, or a sense of disappointment in some cases. But it isn't like a chiding, like a punishment or something. It's just like, wow, maybe I could have spoken up a bit more. Maybe I could have, picked up a few more cans of trash when I saw them. Maybe I could have contributed a little bit more to the food bank. It's stuff like that. And then you sort of think about it for a while as your essence, and you think, well, shall I have another go of it? And that's why some people come back again and again, and others choose not to and continue to operate as their essence in another way. So the journey of incarnation is really about sort of a moment of decision of wanting to take your essence and create a physical 3D experience called life here on earth, and to have that all the while finding more and more of yourself to be happy about and to express as yourself and to be a beneficial blessing in the world.
So then, do we actually have like predetermined life lessons or like a certain destiny? Are there like little breadcrumbs that are left for us, or are we just kind of come down here and kind of go rogue? I mean, kind of,
Maybe it's a little bit of both.
like what you were saying. I mean, obviously there's free will.
Right. Well, what happens is, as I said, when you do incarnate and you're in a situation of family, obligations, responsibilities, etc., sometimes what happens is those demands sort of drown out what you really want to be doing. So like little children, they want, what do you want to be when you grow up? A fireman, a policeman, a teacher, a nurse, whatever. And then over time, sometimes that dream goes away. And maybe it wasn't that they were meant to be a fireman or a policeman or something like that. But what that was saying, when you think about the essence of a child saying, I want to be a fireman or a policeman, I want to help people.
Right.
I want to make a difference. And so there is a theme in each person's life. If you even go back to your childhood, maybe the age of around 7, 8, 9, when you start to be looking at the world more than just looking at the house that you're living in. And you start to think, how will I be in this world? Many of you will go back to that time and think about or remember a sense of what might have been driving you towards seeing your heroes in different arenas. And I know with Samara, she always was a fighter for justice. She just couldn't stand bullying and all this and that. So she wanted to be involved in some way in helping people to live a more just life, a more balanced life, a more loving life. And so here she is doing this. But of course, at 9, I don't think she sat there one day and said, I think I want to channel Mother Mary. She didn't even really have any understanding of me at that point in time. So you have a destiny that you have to sort of like the onion peel through the density of your life. So your destiny keeps trying to direct you, but the density of how the world is working and the fight over money or politics or, all of that, that is what sort of drowns out your essence until you wake up one day and say, you know what? This is my life. I have to lead the life that I'm choosing, not one that's being forced on me.
Well, no, when I was in 2nd grade, I had my mouth taped shut for talking.
Yes.
So that to me, and after that, I didn't talk. And so it was really about learning to express myself and find my voice again. So it seems like we also have those catalysts in our life also that spurn us into what, maybe what our destiny is.
Well, exactly. And so look at you, radio show, right?
Right. Like,
but
you're
you're right.
Listen to me. Whether you want to or not.
See, that's a perfect example. The density of someone actually taping your mouth. And you having to work your way through all of that and the cruelty of that and just saying, I will not be silenced. So congratulations, bravo. But yes, it is a challenge. But again, it isn't that we're sitting up here going, oh, let's have someone tape Mary's mouth shut.
Right.
It's that in this amazing experiment of Earth at the moment, it's really the journey from forgetting to remembering.
Okay. So let's go to the flip side. When we're preparing to come home, how do we do that? What takes place?
Well, this is a very good question because a lot of people sort of don't want to think about the end chapter, right? It's sort of like, well, if I say that, if I make a will, that's saying, I'm going to die next week, or, and they have a lump or this or that. Oh, I better not go to the doctor because I might find something, and so there's a huge denial of death. And so what that does is, again, it creates more density, because the reality is the essence wants to go home to the ocean at some point when the time is right. So what happens when you begin to allow the fear of death to mitigate the choices you would otherwise make? What starts to happen is, again, it quiets down that essence that wants to express and be. And in a climate where there is so much disruption and fear, and people being seized off the street and this and that, it's easy to think I better just protect myself. But the reality is, what's being called for is very much like what happened to you, Mary, with having your mouth taped shut. It's like, no, I will not allow this to ruin my life and to determine my life. I will speak up. And so it becomes important, I think, at that point, because sometimes you're feeling quite isolated or lonely when that begins to happen. So it becomes, I think, incumbent on you to look for the heroes that have lived in this world, who stood up against tyranny and who stood up against wrongful actions and all of that, and to just model your heart after them, and to say, you know what, I will shift, I will change, I will be. And again, we're not ever saying to go put yourself like that poor young man in Tiananmen Square. You may remember when the tank was there and he stood in Tiananmen Square, this young, slim boy. But he was called to do that. And it changed things when people saw that act of courage. You may or may not climb a tree for 200 and some days so they don't cut it down in the redwood forest. But she was called to do that. And so she did. And again, it inspired people. So if you're feeling like moving into a smaller spot for yourself, find the heroes and take comfort and inspiration from them, because the bottom line is you all have an expiration date. And so it isn't to be afraid of dying. It's to say, I want to live my life as joyously and as beautifully and with as much care of my essence as if I was the most amazing orchid in the garden, or flower, rose, whatever it would be.
So is there a difference that, say, if someone dies suddenly that hasn't prepared or hasn't said their goodbyes, versus someone that dies, let's say, from a long illness and that has had a chance to prepare before they cross over?
There can be. When it's sudden and unexpected, and so it wasn't so much an illness, perhaps it was a car accident or something like that. What happens is there's a fracture between the human life and the soul or essence, because the human being who's just, was on their way to work or something and had a car accident did not have a chance for any kind of closure, did not have a chance to say goodbye, did not have a chance to ask for forgiveness in some cases, didn't have a chance to say, I love you to their families and friends. So there's that fracture creates sort of a kind of a time out for them, because they need to have some reassurance that even though that happened, as now an essence, a soul returned to the ocean, if you will, they can still transmit love and compassion and messages to their loved ones. They can say, I'm sorry. They can show up as a red bird for some people, or as a stone, or something that triggers that feeling in you that this is my mother or my loved one or whatever. And so it's difficult, because when you haven't prepared, you also haven't prepared your friends and family. And so they're left with the shock of it, and also sometimes with all of the other aspects of money and wills and children and all of those things. So it's very difficult. So I think one of the things to think about is, are you living your best life now? Are you letting the people in your life know that you love and care for them? Are you handling whatever, 3D things you need to do, like having a will and all of that, so that when it does happen, and it will happen at some point, you don't have the 3D chaotic, unfinished business to complicate the transition.
Right. So I'm going to go a little rogue off of the questions, but that we agreed on yesterday. But when we do cross over, what can we expect? What happens?
Well, it's a very good question. I think there's a couple of things to understand. If you feel complete, there's only joy. And some of you have had the luxury of seeing a loved one pass who was complete. And it's almost like you can feel the energy of their physical body diminish, but in essence, sort of coming out of the body, if you will. And many people see it as light or see it as colors or sometimes songs or something as they come home. And so if you've completed your life in a way that feels good to you, you just come home and we greet you and you feel happy. And for those of you that have loved ones that you want to say hello to, it isn't that you have bodies. I think that's a misunderstanding. But the essences are still, the frequency and essences are all part of the ocean. So you can communicate with friends and loved ones. And people say that I saw this one or that one, and you do see them because they can take their essence and form sort of a hologram of who they were. But many times it's who they were when they were still most vibrant. So you will see, for instance, Samara saw her mother, and instead of being in her 80s, which is what her mother was when she died, she looked like she was 40. So what is that? It's like all the human struggle and the human toll that it took on that essence. When they come back into the ocean, it's as if they're at an age that is still vibrant and wonderful and youthful for them. They don't have to carry whatever they carried in their life.
Right.
So you become part of the ocean again as your essence. And as I said, if you've completed everything, you just feel happy for a while, and then you can decide if you want to go back or not. Now, if you come to us still incomplete, we'll just put it that way. We have sort of a rehab facility, would be one way to look at it. And in the rehab facility, we have other beautiful beings that sort of counsel them and let them know there is no punishment. There is recognition of what you did or didn't do that was either injurious or destructive, or in some cases wonderful. But it's the injurious stuff that makes you unhappy. And so before they can kind of dissolve back into the essence, they've got a chance to understand and sort of reintegrate what happened. And many times people that have that experience, they really want to come back. They really realize, wow, I could have, done this or that or this. And so they're eager to come back, but we don't send them back. We don't let them come back until they really had a chance to just be happy again and realize whatever you did or didn't do in this human journey, it is educational and it's an illustration of possibilities. And so all we want is for you to learn how powerful your energy is and how you can use it in this life in ways that are so beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And so that's kind of what happens when they come and they need to have a little adjustment, shall we say.
So how can we bring that feeling of peace and love and hope here on Earth right now?
This is such a good question, and I'm so happy that you've asked it. One of the things to understand is that your essence, while you're incarnated, lives in your body. It's sort of, it's
Right.
housed in this spacesuit that you've got on. And so all of the care that you would give to any other thing that you love, whether it's an animal or a child or something else, you must give to yourself. You must give yourself tenderness and kindness and love and good food and nature and all those things. Because now what happens is in your essence, in your physical body, there is a congruence that means that your essence is hearing that you love yourself, that you love. People always talk about, I love myself. What does that mean? It means that you honor yourself and you love yourself by giving yourself what your essence requests. And as I mentioned, for some people, it's mega doses of nature. For others, it's being in service to some group, feeding the homeless, whatever. But when you're in that essence and you're doing those things, your body's receiving this holy light, some call it mana, that is your essence expressing in the 3D world and feeling what is coming back to you, whether it's from a tree or an animal or someone that you've just fed soup to. It comes back to you. So now what happens is your vessel, your body, and your essence have become what I'll call sovereign or sacrosanct. So now what's happening in the world, right, and out there, right, which is sometimes so challenging to see and watch and witness, it has its own power, it has its own energy, if you will. And if your energy is too submissive, too diminished, too frightened, too confused, that energy from the outside will overwhelm you and will again silence your essence. So the way to understand this is, if you've seen something on television that is awful and there's nothing you can do about it, go outside and take a walk and ask that whatever that was, be flooded with light. If there's nothing you can do. So now what I've changed is you just did do something. Because if you don't do anything, that energy that is getting more and more angry and upset, and he did and she did, and it will become like this cacophony. So you won't be able to hear your own heart and you won't be able to feel happy and joyous. So number one, take care of this and then allow yourself to go out and share your essence in whatever things make you joyful and happy that are also beneficial in the world. So now something happens in the world and you think, well, maybe there is something I can do. And this is where this new shift is going to happen. I wish I could say it would happen this year, but there's a lot going on behind the scenes, so to speak. So what is going to begin to happen, and you're already seeing it, is that people are noticing the deficits and the discrepancies that they could do something about. So for instance, and again, I'm not going to talk politics, but when they stopped these food benefits, the SNAP benefits, right? And again, that may or may not happen. It may be all rectified. You may not think it's the best idea in the world, but what I want to use as an illustration is locally, people began to gather food. People began to take extra food to the food banks. People began to contribute at the supermarket that has a little sign that says, would you pay an extra few dollars to go to the food bank? They realized they themselves could not solve world hunger, but they could in their own community bring something, a couple of cans of soup, whatever it was, or they could volunteer to be the driver or the packer of the foods or whatever it was. And so what's going to begin to happen even more so next year is that people are not going to worry so much about what the government is or isn't going to do for you, because you're going to realize I have the power to make some changes. And there's some things that are beyond my scope, so I will walk and send light. But where I can, where my heart says, wow, people going hungry when there are people that are billionaires and trillionaires.
Mhm.
And so you realize that your essence lives in this place of oneness. And you begin to really feel like, if I don't do something to help in this particular situation where I have the power to help, what I'm saying is, I don't care. Too bad. So sad. And we all really don't like that attitude. So that's really what can happen in this coming year, is more and more people will be rolling up their own sleeves. They'll be joining together in groups to say, wait a minute, I'm not going to wait for the government to come and pick up, the playground that's a mess right now. I'm going to see if I can gather some people together and fix that. So you become sort of a first responder in a way. So you start to look at the world not as this overwhelming mess. You start to drive in your community and see and hear and feel and think, that's something I could do something about.
I'm glad you used that example. Our entire community came out for our food pantry. They had bands, they had entertainment, they had all sorts of things, and people drove up, other people helped. Farmers dropped off thousands of pounds of food. It was a really wonderful thing to see.
And I like what you said, that there was singing and music, because all of this can be joyful.
Mhm.
I think so much of what has trapped people and kept their essence from being expressed is believing that somehow everything has to be so serious and so, I don't know, whatever. So the joy of it, absolutely, to make music and have fun, and at the same time, don't divide each other into which religion are you or which color are you and all of that. Just, it's oneness.
And none of it
Oneness.
matters. So can you give us a couple different ways that we can really balance taking care of ourselves versus helping others? I mean, I have so many friends that are caregivers to older parents, or, grandparents taking care of their grandkids, and people just seem so overwhelmed at this point with a lot of different issues.
This is a huge issue. And I think, again, I want you to understand that when you have a big issue like that, then you have to sort of, like, what did they say? Think globally, act locally, right?
Mhm.
So in the case of all of those situations where you have caregivers who love their person, their partner, whoever it is that they're caring for so much, that they forget, if they don't take care of themselves, pretty soon that they won't be able to care for their other person. So one of the things that each of you can do, if you feel called to this, is to, if you know a person, you can, again, you'll each find your own way, but you can call them up and say, would you like it if I brought over a meal for you and your family once a week? Of course, you have to ask them and find out if they're gluten-free and all those things. But, it's sort of like you choose something that's within your wheelhouse. And then just imagine one night a week, you double whatever you're making and you wrap it all up and bring it over to them and knock on the door. And for one night, she can have a home cooked meal, I mean, whatever. And they can feel like, I'm not alone in this. Because I think, besides the toll that it takes, the loneliness with which they're operating. And again, all of the services, the big services, are so overwhelmed right now. In the past, you would say, well, just call elder services or Meals on Wheels or something. They are so overwhelmed right now. So again, one other option, if there's something like that in your neighborhood, you could call Meals on Wheels and say, I could, I'm able at this moment in time to go and deliver one meal a week, whatever, once a week, and so you monitor your own energy. And I think that's the other part of it, to realize each of you has an essence that is your first job to take care of. And so don't say, I'll bring you, meals every night for the next month. That's crazy, unless you have lots of friends and you can say, okay, you got Tuesday, you got Wednesday, you got Thursday. But I think it's understanding that if each person just took one step, one act of kindness like that, the world would change overnight. Overnight.
Absolutely. Well, I think at this point, we should maybe open it up to other questions if anyone else has anything they'd like to ask.
Could I ask you a
Frank?
question?
Hey, Frank.
Yes, Frank.
I've been wanting to ask this question for so long, and I don't know if I can ask it or if it's okay. But is there any way that Mother Mary could give us some concept or idea of what she is and where she lives? If you'd ask, I mean, is there any way you can make us understand anything like that?
Well, that's such a good question, Frank. And I think when you think about myself or Jesus or any of us, we lived on the earth in a human form, right? And then when it was our time to leave, we became an essence, right? Went back to the ocean. But both Jesus and myself, I guess we're gluttons for punishment. we keep showing up, but instead of coming as a body, which is very tiresome in a way to be in a body, I come at a frequency, sometimes as an apparition. People see me, in different places. They see me in the bagel or pizza. And I've shown up over the years in different places to bring people hope. And so what is an apparition? And again, I was saying to you, when people pass over, they think, oh, I saw my mother, I saw this or that. So an essence can transfigure themselves in a way into a concentration of energy that appears the way you think Mother Mary should look. And so I'm actually, Frank, I'm everywhere and nowhere. And so I guess, the other analogy I guess I would use, because it is confusing, I'm part of the ocean. And so the other way to look at it, though, is when you turn on the ham radio, not so much the radios that today, they're all so crazy. But, the old days, they had the ham radios that could talk all over the world, right? And yet at the same time, you had to find the right frequency to be able to talk to Joe Schmo in Iowa or this one in Russia or whatever. And so when you tune to my frequency, I'm there. And sometimes, even if you haven't tuned, I come anyway, because I feel in all of you, my dedication, my job, if you will, is for each of you to remember that you're part of God, and each of you has a unique and beautiful, beautiful essence. And as you allow that, as you let all the other stuff just kind of fall away and walk this world as your essence, at some point, this world will be transformed into the garden it was meant to be.
So when you talk about God, is it like a collective of essences, or how would you describe it? It, him,
Again,
her, yin yang.
God is not divided. You can't divide God. You can't really divide God. I know I talked about the ocean, and that's just an analogy. But God is the truth of which you are made. And you are made in the image and likeness of God. What does that mean? You are made of holy fire. You are made of the stars. You are made of beauty and bounty and blessings and all of that. And God is really, what I would say is, when all of you pour yourselves back into the ocean, you're God. Not the only God, but you're part of God. So it isn't a, grandfather with the beard sitting up there, telling you this and that, this and that. It's this feeling of home. It's this feeling of belonging, and it's this feeling of love.
Wonderful. I can't see everyone, so I don't know whether there's any other questions or not.
Looks like Mary has a question. The other Mary.
Hi, I believe in September you said there was something very exciting going to happen in November. Did it?
I like her.
She keeps me on track. Well, I mean, it's been very exciting to watch the shenanigans in the government, don't you think?
Yes.
And it's exciting in the sense that what's happening right now is sort of the next American Revolution. And for those of you that are not into history, when the founding fathers, and of course at the time, remember, it was only white men, no women, no one of color, they did the very best that they could, and they developed the Constitution, and they said, we will not be ruled anymore by England. We will not be under a king. We will not do that. We will be free and independent, and et cetera, et cetera. And they did a beautiful job, right? They wrote We the People and all those good things. Well, it's almost 250 years, right? It will be soon. And in the meantime, America has changed quite a bit. And so what's happening now is the people who were not mentioned in the Constitution initially, even though there's been amendments, but they were not mentioned initially, women, people of color, are saying, wait a minute, I want an America where I have a voice. I want an America where I feel represented. I want an America where I have every bit as much of a chance of success as anyone else. And that's not what they have. So what you're seeing right now, and it's not even about the Democrats and the Republicans, they're butting heads over all sorts of things. It's really about the revolution of the people saying, what do I want? How do I want to live? What does it mean to be an American? Do I want everyone to be able to vote, and what does that look like? Do I want people to be elected and then not even follow what it was that they were elected upon, And so this is the next revolution for America. And I'm not saying civil war, I'm saying revolution, because if this America is to really continue, it has to reform around a different vision. The vision 250 years ago was really astonishing and wonderful and revolutionary for the time. But now what? Now what? Now what? And so it's not only America. America has been, up until these last few years anyway, sort of this shining example of, the economy and people and freedom and all that. Well, underneath that shiny exterior, there was a lot of suffering and a lot of anger and a lot of upset and a lot of things. So what you're already seeing is the tipping point of a revolution in which every single person really needs to think closely, not about what do I want, but rather what can we build together? What could it look like to have truly a more perfect union? What would that be? And beyond that, what is my part in it? So that the essence of the new America and the new world can be really a place where there is a place at the table for everyone, and there is opportunity for everyone. And will there still be inequality? Absolutely. But what's missing really is a vision. And it's really in your hearts, in all of you, across this land and across the other countries too, to realize you have the power to change. And it's up to you to do whatever feels right to you, to be that voice of compassion, to be that voice of equanimity, to be a blessing. So it's already happened, Mary, but thanks for checking in on it.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I think we don't always include our prayer in the recording, but we're getting close to the end anyway, so I think we will. So what we do usually is we end the recording and do a prayer. But tonight on 11/11, since it's a new revolutionary time, we're going to do a prayer. And it's also Veterans Day. So I just want to take a moment as Mother Mary and express my deep gratitude for every soul in every country who has been willing to put their life on the line, believing in the cause that sent them wherever they had to go. I'm not saying it was right, but I'm saying how honoring for each of them that have served and continue to serve. And I would just ask all of us to send our prayers to all of those who have fought, who have left their families behind, who have been lonely and often injured. May they find peace, and may they feel our love and respect. And now to all beings everywhere, and I know some of you have your own prayers for certain people, and certainly just know that we are including them, but let's just take a moment and ask that all over this world, the essence that lives in each and every human being awaken to their greater light, awaken to the dream that lies inside them. Awaken, awaken, awaken. And then follow that dream, follow that essence, using the power of love and compassion, justice and well-being to take care of this beautiful earth, to see it as a garden. So where there is need to bring water, bring water. Where there is need for sun, let it be sun. But more than anything, let people know it's time to believe in yourself and live the essence of light that you are. And for all those tonight who are weary, we are with you. We ask that someone reach out to you with a meal or a helping hand. And we say, we love you. We love you. We love you. Namaste. Wow. Well, this is Samara, and I'm back. Mother Mary's like in the back seat now. I was in the back seat. But I know I really enjoyed having Mary ask the questions. I like to take a quick read. How many people enjoyed having Mary ask the questions? Yeah, that was really, really special. So thank you, Mary.
You're welcome.
And for all of us, I just want to say thank you for showing up here. May you have a wonderful Thanksgiving, whatever you're doing. Maybe take a couple of extra cans to your local food bank if that feels right to you. And I'll be back on 12/12. Oh, I love all the hearts, Elaine. Thank you. You can all unmute yourselves if you want to. And is there anything else you want to say? Good wishes for the Thanksgiving crowd and everything? Speak up.
Oh, thank Mother Mary for answering my question. I've been wanting to ask a question for so long. I know we can't understand, well, maybe some of us can't, but I know it's way beyond our mental thing to understand it, but I'm glad I was able to ask it.
I'm glad you
It
asked
was
it
a
too,
great
Frank.
question.
It was.
All of them, all of the entire questions were really good.
Well, we'll do
Thanks.
it. We'll do it again next time. Mary and I kind of conspired beforehand.
As I said, I went rogue a couple times, but that's okay.
Well, with Mother Mary, you just never know. You just never know.
Exactly.
All right. Well, many blessings, everyone. Have a wonderful, safe holiday, and I'll be back on 12/12. So much love.
Thank
Bye.
you.
You.
Bye, everyone. Take care.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye to all.
Bye bye. Good
Bye,
night. God
Wendy.
bless.
Um,